Kia ora tātou. Just like to acknowledge Adam. Thank you for opening our thing with the Hauraki and Chair. It's good on Adam and Chase. I am here representing Hauraki Māori Trust Board. Something that we want to be a part of, not just one meeting a year. I was just telling our mate that one. I don't know if it's in conflict of interest, but I've been in the police for the last 33 years. I currently am a sworn officer. I'm just having a little bit of a break so I can attend some of these meetings and see what else out there. But just on there listening to here, I thought it was a smart move to have a beautiful little home on in Taradu until there was it 2017. It wasn't a decent idea. So I'm quite interested to see this as well. My placement clearly got a bit of a smacking in the last one, so yeah, these are all pure.
I'm Colin Buchanan, targeted ratepayer associated with the Waihau River. We farm in Hauraki and farms drained into both the Waihau and the Piako. It's just out of Pyro, and I think like a few of us here, the flood protection, the waterways are critical to our region, but our flood protection schemes are critical to our communities. And yeah, quite invested in making sure that they're responsible environmental citizens, but they also do their job effectively.
Craig's Lighting Boss. I've just been invited along to see how this goes and to learn, to be on the committee in the future, I guess. Farm at Pyro on Waihau and the rivers, and then at Piritonga on the Waikato Canal to have pump stations all the land.
Hi everyone, I'm Peter Kinley. I am a targeted ratepayer for the Piako River scheme. I live in Springdale. I was associated with the committee last triennium as well. I'm a civil engineering consultant and I specialise in being an expert witness for flood protection and flood management.
Yeah, good afternoon, Warren Ma. I'm the Waikato Regional Councillor for Thames Coromandel. So I'd just like to congratulate Robbie and Noel for getting this committee back up and running. Super important. I'm a first year councillor, and it's just obviously Thames Coromandel, we don't have too much flood and drainage up there, but we do have some issues. It's just, yeah, it's really interesting, and it's great to see all you gentlemen and ladies around the table and to kick this off, because it's really important that feedback comes back to us at regional council, and especially for us councillors that may not be in the area. So thanks guys very much. Yeah. Thank you.
Ben Dunbar-Smith, I'm first term councillor along with Robbie for Waihau. I'm here as an alternate. We've just allowed one of us to come forward because it's important to have Kaparaina as a Māori representative, so she's not here today. Just wanted to, again, thank you two guys. You don't know how hard these two are to get these committees back up and running and get them running fast, because they seem to die in between elections. And the thing we know from Waihau is that this scheme is one of the major things the regional council does, and Hamilton forgets that. They think it's all about birds and flowers, and they do, seriously. They don't seem to regard many of the important things about safeguarding the economic growth and also stopping flooding. So it's really important you guys do feedback and do come back to councils on this and become a lobby group and such. So, yeah.
Jodie Kotzian, I'm WRC staff, the zone manager for Hauraki.
Kia ora tātou. I'm Reuben Mills, I'm the land drainage manager. So looking forward to interaction with the committee and being able to deliver the services we need.
Kia ora tātou. Greg Ryan, staffing with Waikato Regional Council, Director Integrated Catchment Management. Got a civil engineering background, been with council for 21 years. And yeah, really pleased to see not only the committee up and running, but also great attendance. So looking forward to the discussion. Got it.
Hi, excuse me, Noel Smith, Waikato constituency, which is basically the Waikato District Council area. I've been involved in building drainage now for 28 years. I farm on the Waipā River. And whilst I didn't suffer the 2017 event that you guys did, I can name 98 2004, 2008, 2012. There I go on. So I am familiar with rivers and drainage and what the impact on our land could be. So here to support Robbie yeah, let's. I was going to say let's make these committees great again, but I don't want to be associated with that idiot from America. So yeah, let's just get on with it and let's hope we can achieve something.
Tēnā koutou, ko Anna Monroe tōku ingoa. I'm the manager for flood protection and drainage. I've worked with Jodie and Kenny and the operational teams across the Hauraki area, and also worked with the Lower Waikato operational team through Sarah Freeman from Brendan Manning as well. So yeah, it's good to be here. Just want to take a second just for some housekeeping. So for those of you that don't know the building well, facilities or restrooms are just through the doors. You just walk down to the left, to the right, go down that main corridor, and the toilets are just on the right hand side. You go through. Wi-Fi is up on the wall if you need Wi-Fi access. And I think if we evacuate, it's the nearest exits out and go out onto the grassy area or onto the paved area as well. So just in case there's an emergency evacuation, unless I'm told otherwise here, so nearest exit. I think it's pretty safe out here. So thank you.
Kia ora everybody. I'm Sarah McLeod, everyone. I'm staff member at Waikato Regional Council for my sons and do the democracy services team. So we try to ensure that all governance decision making, such as the ones who will be contributing to according to law, and that they have the impact that was intended.
Thank you, Sarah. Once again, I just would gratefully thank you all for coming, and I hope this attendance continues in the future. I'd also like to very much thank Noel, my deputy, and the other councillors here and in Hamilton that have supported us to reinstating these committees in a new format, but in a format that you wanted to be able to do recommendations. I know it wasn't the perfect outcome, but it was still an outcome that you got to recommend to ICM of the issues and things that were going on in our flood protection. So I'd like to thank you all. I thank Greg and staff here today for supporting us getting this over the line. It hasn't been easy, and there has been toing and froing to get to here, but we're here now, and Greg in the future will give us a plan of how these committees will have longevity during elections, that they will not be shut down for that year in the future. So that discussion will be had in the near future, how that will proceed, and Greg will give guidance for that to go forward in the future. So hopefully you'll never see a year of shutdown in the future, unless that is something that council wants. It will not. We'll try and give guidance that doesn't happen in the future. So thank you all, and I hope that helps to support that these committees will have longevity, what we all wanted to have. So thank you for that. You want to carry on with the members' induction report there, Sue?
I won't bore you too long with this. In your general packs, there are documents that I will take as being read. And if you've got any questions, please let me know. There's one that centres around a guide to appointed members, which most of you are appointed members to Waikato Regional Council through the subcommittee. And it just talks about general things, including, the subcommittee will have a particular opinion on something, and when you're expressing an opinion which is personal, because you are on the subcommittee, it's important that if there's confusion, you do actually clarify that you're expressing a personal opinion if it's counter to the subcommittee's opinion. You do need to disclose and manage interests if they might be perceived or actually come in conflict with your personal interests. because if you don't, it can threaten the veracity of the decision making here. So there's options if you do feel that you're conflicted around any decision making, you can stand out of the discussion and you can abstain from voting, or you could do both if you wished. At the end of the day, it is your final decision to decide what we will do about any interest. But we want strong, robust decision making, and those interest management is an important part of that. We will send you, as I said, a form to disclose your interests, the interests that are required to be disclosed by law. And if you could just take the time to complete that, I'd be really grateful, as tedious as it might be. And you've also got a guide on standing orders, and the standing orders are really rules of the meeting, and we tend to run most of our meetings at Regional Council on a fairly casual basis. We don't resort to the rules very often. We tend to aim for consensus decision making. So it's only when we can't get across the line on that goal, which consensus decision making, that we resort to using standing orders. Or, if there was another extreme reason, like a conduct reason. And so, we all just remember that we're all here to do the best around the terms of reference for the committee and work together. We won't always agree, but we treat each other with respect and move with that. We're trying to seek a consensus on decision making where possible. And I think that's probably enough from me.
Oh, sorry.
I think so. So if there's any questions, you can always get back to us around those two documents. They're there for your reference.
I've got a query because it came up ages ago, and I'm thinking that it's on page 61, point 9.10. Legal height has got a 48 hours for a document that's legal. I thought it was longer than the 48 hours that gave us the time it's released. Because if it's a legal document, we have to have the time to process that before. Do you remember that, Connie?
Hang on, what page are you talking about?
Page 61. 9.10. It's just that I thought it was longer than 48 hours. Because it was legal for the normal agenda, 48 hours was all right. So I just looked through.
3 working days is the minimum that the agenda must.
That's the agenda, but if it's a legal document coming through that we have to sign off or agree to, I thought that we had to have a longer time.
The standing orders don't specify just around legal documents per se. That 9.10 is solely around the agenda distribution. So, and we always try to get the agenda out to you earlier.
Yes, I know that. I was just that we had to come up with one other meeting and we had to do something that was illegal, but we didn't physically have the time frame to digest what that document was. Do you remember that, Conor?
Yeah, I remember the circumstances, not the specifics. And I think we've perhaps been fortunate that traditionally the documents have come out in a pretty reasonable time. I'm part to hear you say that's the minimum.
That's the minimum.
That's right. I just wanted to clarify.
But I think if you do have concerns about timeframes around executing a document, then you need to say so, and you need to be given the time you need, because you can't sign something off if you're not comfortable. I think people would agree with that.
Yep.
I think that it's some week, 7 days.
I think that's what it was if it was legal.
Mr. Chairman, this committee wouldn't be recommending in that space. So I might be recommending something happen, but it wouldn't be executing a document. This committee doesn't have that ability to execute documents on behalf of council. So it would only be a recommendation, and therefore I'm not.
I can't remember. That's probably
I
two
think
terms.
it's the 3 day, the current circumstances.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you.
I just had a question. So I see under the 8 members, 1 representing, and there's all the there's Māori Trust, Charitable Trust, iwi Trust. I see that Ngāti Tumutumu are not on there. They're the local iwi from Te Aroha. But yeah, you've got Ngāti Hinarangi and Ngāti Hawa, but not Tumutumu.
Ngāti
Tumutumu.
No, thanks. Thank you for that.
Okay, just through you, Mr. Chair, we did reach out to a number of them, but we received quite limited responses, but definitely thanks for bringing it up and double check that we weren't missed. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's, we've actually had the change for Waikato that the members could be staff.
Yeah, so anyone who, like a child, nominate was restricted to members of the trustees of Waikato Tainui, but they asked for being able to put forward who they thought was the best people for the job. So,
yeah. So then we can get the membership. So.
And this committee
has changed as well. So that option is there. Yeah.
Can we just do receive?
Yeah. So if we can receive that the members' induction report, the Hauraki Scheme Committee, 7th of December 2023, being received. So I move it, please. Philip and Peter. All in favour? Against? Carried.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. So, committee members, we've taken a bit of a different, approach to the reporting this time around for the scoping report, and I'm going to a bit of a tag team to you today. So before I hand over to Jodie, as the zone manager, and Ruby as an drainage manager, just to cover up some key points. I just thought to explain a little bit about the format. So for those of the new members, just got up on the screen there. It's a little bit small, sorry, but you'll get the gist of the outline of the Waihao Piako zone, or the Hauraki catchment. It's pretty much, I think it covers both the Waihao Valley scheme to the right and also the Piako River scheme to the left. The zone is quite extensive. It goes as far south as to the Mamakus, so even south around about Takaroa, and then all the way up to the Firth of Thames and up towards the Kaiawa Marina coastline. And it also includes a little bit of a panhandle, if you like, around Thames as well, so which includes the Kauranga River catchment there. The biggest catchment is actually the Ohini River, which comes out through Tairua, which is all part of the Valley scheme as well. The Waihao Valley scheme is an all-of catchment scheme, so it includes the tributaries that drain the western flanks of the Kaimai Ranges, so pretty much along here. It is a 1 in 100 year flood scheme for the most part of it. It also has a key tidal element, which is what Roger was alluding to before. And the tidal influx goes quite a few kilometres, probably 30-40 kilometres upstream on a good tide. So that adds a lot of complexity to the schemes. And similar for the Piako, we've got it's really a main stem sort of a catchment for a river scheme as opposed to the river catchment. So we don't generally have the wider tributary responsibilities as we do on the Waihao. And of course we've got stop banks all through Ngātia and through the lower reaches, including the Kotuatai Dome upstream. So yeah, just a bit of a context. Jodie's included some background information. I won't steal too much of her thunder, but it's just useful for new members just to understand. There's quite a lot to understand. The schemes have been around for 60 plus years, and gentlemen around the room and ladies probably are quite familiar with it for the most part. But it's just important to understand the mechanics and the hydrology. Ruben will be touching some of the other challenges we have around the drainage with peat settlement and urbanisation and other land use changes. So yeah, it's really important. And it does take a all of council, all of partnership approach to manage the scheme and keep it up can. Certainly has been well tested this year. As you would agree, 2023 was an exceptional year rainfall wise. Not no wood to touch, but hopefully going forward, we can have a bit of respite over this coming summer. And yeah, but fair to say the scheme operated really well during that event.
Can I just comment on this scheme? So it's not quite Rolls Royce, but it's pretty damn close to it. And I've just spent a week in Napier cycling around the damage down there, and their schemes were so inadequate. Their stoppings were pathetic, and the damage is just unbelievable. So it's so important to keep this scheme.
Just a note too, so sorry, while there's a pause, this is on page 116 of your pack, just so everyone's all there.
Just a second, Sarah's got something to
I
say.
just omitted to tell you that we're recording all our meetings these days, so we'll record this meeting's being recorded and it will go up on the public web, and that's awesome because it allows other people who've got an interest to tune in and hear what's said at the meeting and see who's there and what have you. Just so you're aware.
Didn't cause members of the Waikato subcommittee to hold back. So don't be afraid.
What can you hold back?
Oh, yeah, no, that's fine. We're not expecting anyone to hold back.
Thanks, Sarah. And just a couple of other points before I hand over to Jodie. She printed some hard copy maps on the table as well, just to help out with that. And I think it's important that you talk me during the meeting if there is a floodgate or a asset that you're referring to, it's used, and I'll try and bring it up on the screen as well, because I think it's quite valuable as well. So yeah, I'll leave things there and have to take questions along the way, but maybe Jodie, hand over to you just to run through a few extra points.
Great, thanks, Adam. Yeah, I did, was not anticipating the outstanding turnout that we are having today, so I've printed out 4 copies. These maps were requested last triennium, and what they do, there's 4 copies kind of around the table, so if you're interested, have a look and let me know if they're suitable for what your need is. But the naming conventions of our assets and stop banks are, you know, if you're not familiar with them, you have no idea where we're talking about. So this is just a series of maps with an index at the back that if you're happy with this format, then we'll replicate them for everyone. But and what Adam's kind of got up on the screen at the moment, an interactive map is also available on our website, and you can go in and click and search for stop banks and pump stations, etc. as well. So if you are trying to digest your report and have no idea where we're talking about, that's available. So those, yeah, for those that are interested, I would appreciate some feedback on that. Thank you. And so yes, our report is on page 111 of your pack, and I will keep it brief and just touch on a few big highlights. So as Adam mentioned, 22-23 year was quite a year for us, and through the storms in the summer, we were successful in accessing the funds from the Regional Disaster Recovery Fund, which is a fund that Waikato Regional Council holds based on targeted rate input for events such as these. So we were able to access $1.3 million for a combination of Waiho and Piako for both our response efforts and the cleanup work that was done in the 22-23 financial year. Our program for that is ongoing, and will be funded. We'll be making a similar request size to be determined from the fund, but we've also applied for some central government funding that's come available to help out with some of that recovery work, mostly on the rivers on the eastern side of the Waiho, kind of between Thames and Paeroa, which were really hard hit during the cyclones. So we look forward to that.
Just on that recovery, I went up Maramari Road, which is Carolyn South Road in our terms, and the damage over Gabriel has undermined the road quite a bit there. I know it's in TC's area, but it's, and they're both on the outside of the corner of the river, which gets the heaviest. and it's become quite an navigational hazard for the road users. So just bring it to your attention.
Yeah, that area is quite interesting for us because it ends up being a combination of efforts between us and DOC and in certain instances the TCDC as well. So we have done work in the past up there, strengthening some of the areas with them, but no doubt that will be one of the areas, if it's our responsibility, that we'll be looking at. And certainly the fund that we've applied for, we would be aiming to build resilience into some.
Yeah, I'm just listening in on the
allows us to go and patch up works and move on to the next. So we're hoping to target some of those areas with the fund.
Thank you. Just like to welcome our chair, Pamela Stories, online listening. So thank you, Pamela, for coming online. Thank you.
Kia ora, just listening in the background. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Pamela.
A fairly detailed summary of our operational work program is on pages 118 and 119 of your pack in a table. So I won't go into too much detail here, but happy to take questions on them. We're on track to be completing our operational work program for the year, which is fantastic. And we've also got one thing that's not on that list is we've got a barge coming down to open up the Piako River mouth. It's becoming overgrown with oysters and is causing some of the river flows to hold up upstream and is starting to be noticed on some of those flood assets there. So that's missing from the table.
Can I just, sorry, Jody, just on the canal constructions on 119, some of those there are not in our area.
Yes, my apologies. That was an oversight from me. I highlighted them to go back and change them to be not Lower Waikato canals. So I'll have that updated better for next time. So my apologies. But there's one other error in the report that's similar to that, and someone can pull me up on it later if you're clever. So my apologies for those. We've also got 2 steam performance reviews, hydraulic modeling exercises happening. One on the 10-yearly cycle for the Waiho, which has been a long grind, but is coming to completion, which will be tabled at this committee when the results are ready. And then we'll go to the Integrated Catchment Committee for endorsement as well before we build that into our program of work. And the Piako River model is undergoing a light review as well to bring that up to current, which is also nearly done. We're just refining some of the areas around the Kapuatai Bay. The survey information is not as accurate as we would like, and there's some misrepresentation on some of the ponding capacity in that space. So we just want to get it as accurate as we can before we start making stop and upgrade plans for that. And the capital works program is on the next 2 pages, page 120 and 121. So there's quite a bit of detail in there as well, which I'm happy to take questions on. The kind of 2 major projects that we're working on right now are shovel-ready funded projects through MB, are the Piako River mouth right bank asset rationalization, which is combining 3 floodgates into one and has kind of involved quite a lot of drainage work in with that. So we've been working with Hauraki District Council as well for those. And the second kind of big project is the foreshore stop bank upgrade, which is all the projects have been a bit held up with the weather last year and they're trying to get going this year, but there's been some intermittent rain, which is causing some some slight delays. So we're also working with Hauraki District Council quite closely, or the Hauraki Rail Trail Trust, I should say, just around the rail trail that's on top of the western stop bank. There's just some challenges with the land ownership in that area that, creating some challenges that we're working around. So how do you take it?
Any idea when that's going to be open?
So the eastern side, because it was meant to be open before Christmas breakup, but just with the intermittent rain we've been having, it has delayed it. So that's looking more towards the end of January. The western is going to be is closed at the moment, and is we have a plan to open it intermittently to the public. The Hauraki Rail Trail Trust has secured some funding from central government to build a goats trap on the landward side, and so we're just working through some health and safety instances to make sure that our contractors and the public are kept safe if there is times when both are open and active. So we're still finalizing the details in those, but that was kind of an unexpected, it's an unexpected challenge that we're facing kind of at this late hour. And so we're working through some things around that. What's there?
Just to give some clarity through the chair, Jody, with regard to the Hauraki Rail Trail Trust, there was an MOU with the region regarding the maintenance of that rail trail track, that in essence we would sort of upgrade, just as WRC upgrades roughly 10% of the foreshore stop bank, 10% of it every year. We were going to upgrade the track 10% every year. Because of the shovel-ready project being able to redo the whole stop bank in 1 year, that meant we didn't have the budget to upgrade the track, and it's created a bit of an issue. But hopefully we're working through it. There's a bit of detail to get through, like you said. But I think the cyclists are going to give us advantage for 1 year. While I'm speaking, JD, through the chair again, the Kiri project upgrade that's been on the books for as long as I've been a member of this committee. With regard to the Hauraki being shut down for so long, it's a shame that that hasn't been able to get actioned and underway. Is it just the land negotiations holding the whole process up, or what?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Those are going quite well. There's been some issues with the design level of service that we've picked up at various points along the project. And just as we've gone out to tender, before we've gone out to tender, have noticed that there's the stop bank heights themselves have been designed to kind of double the level of service that we're meant to be providing, or we have funding to provide the community. So yes, it's still planned, but we're just having another relook and making sure that the heights that we're building to are ones that we are required to build. So that will be, we're doing that currently, and we're likely looking at doing that next construction season. On that though, interestingly, we are experiencing quite a heavy sediment load coming down that stream from the Kopohikawai slip. So we've been in a couple of times to restore the capacity of that channel as our regulatory rules allow, which is actually quite a benefit for us because we're using that material to build the stop bank. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, I suppose. Yeah. Thank you.
Through you, Chair. Jody, just a reference in there, especially around that stop bank around licences to occupy. Obviously, we've been significant construction works going on there for a period of time now. So just wanting maybe give us some comment around what is the process around, what is the thoughts of the council around those licenses to occupy on that stretch of asset?
Sure, there's a small wedge of area where the stop bank structure itself goes off of the public works land and onto private land, which wasn't identified early, and the landowners weren't even aware of it. So we've entered into a license to occupy to enable the construction of the stop bank. But we will be looking to acquire the land through public works, which will be of a benefit to both regional council and Hauraki district, Hauraki Welfare Trust, to secure that land, because that means that the alternate goats trap will be on public land in that area rather than private.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I sort of was meaning the whole area along there, but obviously a lot of landowners, part owners, I should say, at least parts of that stop bank in the past. Is that still going to be the case going forward? What is the long-term plan for leasing landowners?
Yes, so those areas were never formally licensed or leased. They were kind of a handshake informal agreement that they were allowed to graze that land. But with the, well, for a start, it's been made very clear to us that it's not our land. So it's actually road reserve for a majority of that area. So we're having some discussions with Hauraki district representatives just regarding how we go ahead, but the general consensus is that stock are not desirable on the stop bank side of the drain, and so we'll be communicating that at some point that yeah, it won't be resuming afterwards.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Joe, just if you could elaborate on the top of page 120, it's talking about Johnston's floodgate pump station. So firstly, if you could just get the meeting know whereabouts that floodgate is and pump station.
Yes, Johnston's floodgate is just north of Ngatea, on the right bank of the Piako River. And it's a pump station and double barrel floodgate kind of combination along the stop bank.
And just in the notes, it says it's been removed from the shovel-ready project. Just could you give us a bit of background behind that?
So this, through the shovel-ready program, we had funding from MB to install some fish-friendly pumps. Idea being that we would be putting them into areas that the pumps were becoming end of life and needed replacement anyway. And Johnston's came up as kind of one of the top priorities from what our asset data was showing us. Upon further hydraulic investigation of the catchment, we kind of concluded that the pump station where it was and the levels were sufficient to serve the catchment for a number of years in the future. And so it wasn't in need of replacement. At that point, it was a little bit too far down the track to utilize the funding from MB for that to try and find another asset to replace. So the Johnston's has been removed from that. So that's kind of what that line means. And we're looking at some of the outlet pipes. For your interest in this will come mostly at the next committee meeting. That whole area of stop bank is in an area where the Piako River is very restricted. And it's been kind of a long-term strategy to be looking at moving the stop banks back in that area to allow the river some room to move. The stop banks themselves are quite the berm is quite eroded and continues to erode because of the way the river is moving. So we'll be looking at moving the stop banks back, as well as will require the movement of the floodgate assets back as well. But the details of that will come probably through this committee with the LTP information. So just for your context, it's part of the larger story, I suppose.
Thank you. And the other one was just a query on point 10 on page 112, just around staff supporting the Hauraki District Council and its climate change adaptation planning process. Is there anything you can share with us that would be relevant to this committee around what implications that might have?
My colleague at Hauraki District might be able to speak more on it, but the process is going to be quite a community collaborative approach, similar to what Thames Coromandel have recently done with their shoreline management plan. And the idea being is getting various parts of the community together, along with iwi and hapu, to give their views on certain areas, whether they are wanting to stay in them and continue to defend them, if they're areas that they want to retreat out of, or in the light of sea level rise and climate change, or if there's certain planning provisions that can be put in, such as lowering the minimum elevation of your floor levels in your house. So if it does rain, you're not constantly getting flooded in. My understanding, it's a requirement for the district councils to be going through this exercise as part of the National Climate Act, which I've probably mislabeled, but and so we're just acting in a supporting role, providing information and some connections through that. So the official launch is going to be in the new year, and there's going to be a lot of comms available. So we're just finalizing kind of what the stakeholder involvement is going to look like, and how this committee will be maybe involved in a capacity. But certainly yourselves as Hauraki District community members I would encourage you to participate on the panels, or whatever form they might come in, if you're interested. And for areas, because the district lines run the way they do, we're doing some work with Matamata Piako as well to see if we can get that part of the whole picture and that group, talking the same way, because certainly from an iwi perspective, the lines don't really mean much to them, and it's looking at the whole of the Kapuatai and the whole of that part of the catchment as one picture. So hope that's
just to add to that, Jody, it's all been brought about by global warming and sea level rise predictions. So nationally now you have this adaptation planning, is what it's called. We've just gone through, the Hauraki District Council has just done a 4.5 year process on the Wharakaua Coast 2120. So it's about putting together a 100-year plan, and what all the all that goes into that for planning for a region or an area and we're focusing on those areas that are likely to experience that sea level rise problem the earliest. So you've Kaiawa Coast, Wharakaua Coast, that was our first cab off the rank. The next one is the Hauraki Plains region. So it ties in with planning for all your district plan changes. So all that comes into it. Anything rural, such as the drainage and flood protection, that's going to be a big part of it. So I would expect that this committee has a place at the table as a stakeholder. I'll be making sure that that's just a broad overview. It's going to take a while. It'll be
Councillor Mayor would like to speak to that as well, because him and Benjamin have been on on the committee portfolio goes to you.
Yeah, thank you, Robbie, and Jennifer Nichols, co-chair on that committee, another one of our councillors, Connell. So, it's gone out to the community and their aspirations and what they see and how they look at adaptation going forward, as Philip said, and so looking at how we are involved as a regional council, obviously as a district council, and so it's sort of the first one. I also sit on the Thames Coromandel foreshore group, but it's the first one of looking at the community and the input and their aspirations, and then how that progresses over sort of a 100-year timeframe, basically, and looking for that. So nothing's been committed to yet. We're making sure that the community and residents know that anything that does get developed out of this process obviously will be a cost, be it targeted, be it general, however that falls out. But the main thing has been able to get that Kaiawa community together, iwi, etc., and have them involved right from ground level, and have them understand, where they want to be in the future and how that may look for them. So, and it's something, as Philip indicated, I think we'll carry on through the other regions as this becomes more and more of a problem. Thanks, Robbie.
You're welcome.
Jody, I'll go back to page 118. You've got Keir West being evaluated for replacement. What's the benefit of that group?
Pardon me, the bridge.
Yeah, you've got here. Keir West being evaluated for replacement.
That is what we're evaluating.
Yeah.
We're just assessing whether we need it, whether we need it at the weight rating that it is, and whether we need to replace it, or whether there's just signage that we can put up to restrict the weight loading on it. So we haven't committed any funds to it.
I suppose where I was coming from, 50 years I never used it. And it was an asset of the Tiara Thames Valley Drainage Board. With the amalgamation in '89, they cleaned down their far side, and we used to always clean from the northern side. So the only people that use that bridge is duck shooters. X amount of years ago, I got it checked, and we could only take 5 tonne across it. So there's no machines that small these days. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I have a question on page 121, sorry, go switching numbers around. On pump stations, electrical and pump control, it says that telemetry changeover no longer supported on 5 stations, so have they been manually monitored?
So it hasn't expired yet, but we will be putting a different telemetry system into them, similar to what's running on some of our other pump stations.
It comes up to the same, yeah, so everything's the same. So how long is it going to be before the changeover?
Should be by the end of the financial year. I'm not sure on the specifics, sorry.
Okay. Just if you can't look it up, it's a bit of a worry if there's an event. It's Thank you.
Say thank you, Jody. Through Mr. Chair, I might just hand over to Brendan just to run through a couple of points of the program of Thames Valley. He's got a few emerging issues that he wants to highlight today for the members' benefit. Thanks, Brendan.
Certainly, thank you, Adam. And through the chair, just a quick update on the issues. And I guess that, the land drainage activity consists of the operational program to maintain our drainage infrastructure, which we all know is important for this area and the other area where we have it installed to maintain pastoral farming. So I guess we have the work programs up and operational for the year. In terms of that, we're targeting the areas for weed spraying and that I guess we couldn't really get into because of the wet earlier in the year and the wet winter. So they're kicking off now. And the machine treating has been targeting on some blockages that came through after the storms as well. Although I am hearing from Ian with a catch up this morning, Ian, that we've got some oxygen weed coming along now as well. So as it's got warmer, the water level has actually stayed up. There's a bit of growth around there. So there's some machine cleaning going on in that program at the moment as well. So in the Thames Valley itself, yeah, we've got spraying off and running. We've got 2 sets of contractors in there at the moment. Our own team will start spraying next week. They're assisting with some works up in Tikura, I think, at the moment, some river work up there. So they'll be back down in our patch at the moment. And yeah, so things are up and running, and the system's running all right, and they're going about their work as they need to, I guess. Is the main thing, with the view of catching up on some of the areas that we couldn't get into. The bit of rain that we've been having, of course, causes some access issues. If we're in there, and we don't want to make a mess in paddocks, the guys are generally working with the landowners to ensure we can get in and out of access and not make too much of a mess, and keep those relationships good. So, I mean, I guess it comes down to some of our emerging issues as well. And some of the things that we're sort of we're looking at there is that there's a couple of things that we are looking at. So not necessarily in this area, but we've got some of the schemes of wanting to go to self-administration. And over in the Lower Waikato Aka, there's some discussion. So we've had to develop a policy around that to see how you would approach that, and some rules around the consistency of the council. That was being reviewed by the councillors, and we've put that out for some working group with the Lower Waikato working group, and there's 4 landowners in there, and that'll come back to ICMC for a review and some sort of approval. What we're essentially saying in there is that undertaking these land drainage works and making sure that our systems are maintained, provide a decent level of service, we believe is council business, and we aim to do that well to meet our level of service to our targeted ratepayers. And that giving that off to some groups provides some risks. So if it was a completely complicated drainage district, we wouldn't be looking at that. If there was consents required, we wouldn't be looking at that. So it would have to be a simplified system with minimal landowners. Yeah, so that'll run its course, and we'll have a look at that across that thing. So, and I guess the other thing that is happening as well is that as we get urbanisation pushing into our rural areas, there's a real challenge there for the urban drainage, for the rural drainage system as well. So there's an expectation that we remove water off pasture within 3 days, up to the 10-year storm. And if you've got some urbanisation in your system, they don't really want water sitting around on their front door for 3 days. There's some issues there. We have had that, I guess, over in the Waikato, so we're looking at a policy there as well as to what we do about that. And some of those areas are better to be managed, I guess, by the territorial authority. It's an urban scheme. So, our view is that we need to ensure that, that we are maintaining our level of service for our, from the rural scheme. So there is a lot of, developers and development pushing out. We do get the opportunity where we can to look at those consents for development that are coming through. If we do have drainage channels, canals, our significant infrastructure in that area, we will endeavour to put easement on it so that we can get in there and do our cleaning. And even that can be quite hard, because over time there's a different way that people will operate within that residential rural lane. Try and keep your 10-metre easement and keep them out of that drainage area so you can go through and clean, but they just don't. Whereas in the rural zone, you would clean the drain and you put the material onto the paddock, and then later you can spread it out and do something with it. They don't necessarily want to do that, so you get into a system where you've got to pick it up, you've got to take it away. They put fences right up to the drain, so it's just not running the same as we would like it. The cost of all doing that, of course, falls back on that wider scheme. So we're definitely looking hard at some policy around how we do a structured handback of some of that to remove the burden in that area. Yeah, so those are the main things. National environmental standards, they're requiring under that sort of freshwater legislation to get some new consents around freshwater and wetlands and various things. We're partway through that process. We've parked it at the moment while we undertake a review. We've looked at a couple of specific areas where we've decided that we need to look at the actual drainage channel or canal and agree whether it's actually part of the wetland or not. And we did that over in Lake Waikato. And we looked at that, and we've got our own ecologists in who have confirmed to us that it's actually not part of the wetland that surrounds the fringe of the lake. And so in that case, there's no requirement for a consent. You can undertake those works with permitted activity rules under the regional plan and best practice guidelines. Doesn't necessarily confer that you have access to do that, but it does, to a certain extent, legitimise the land drainage infrastructure that's there. And that's one of the critical things that we look to do under the Act 1908 Act, is that, we need to hold whatever legislation we can at a bay and legitimise what those critical infrastructure is and why it's there long term. So there's quite a bit of work being done in there. There will be instances where we will require to do some consenting around, a wetland going through and probably modified waterways. Not sure there's a lot of modified waterways in the Hauraki Thames Valley. You do have, of course, have them around the Kapurtai Peak Dome in some of those areas through there. We did put our ecologists, and I went through those canals through there, through the Bancroft and the Elstone, and we could categorically identify that the canals and the drains in that area were not part of the wetland. That's critical in allowing us to do some spraying and keep those areas open. But some of the vegetation that was on the track beside, there's still some discussion as to whether that's part of the wetland or part of an access direct. So we've been working hard in those areas to a certain extent. Yeah. So that's those issues. The other one that I didn't get a chance to put into the report, but over the past 3 years we've been doing some planting along drains. So with the aim of trying to prove up that planting along drains has a environmental benefit, shading, cooling of water, control of nutrients, but also has a land drainage benefit by stabilising the banks along the edge. And so most of that work, I think, was done around the Taranui area on some of the Tatua farms there. And it's been successful. So there's a picture of a drain after. And we think there's some real benefit in implementing those plantings on more of a catchment-wide sort of basis. And we say that because it sort of starts to focus on all the things that we believe are important to both the drainage scheme, to the landowners in the area, to the wider community, and also to right through to the Hauraki Gulf, I guess, in terms of controlling sediment. So there's that there. It's been successful. There's been some science done around it. There's been a couple of years of trials now. And I guess we're just seeding the thought now about whether we push that on into implementing in a structured way over time.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, thanks, Ruben. That's a really good segue. So this is I'm really heartened that this is a success story, I think, for land drainage. And unfortunately today, Peter Lahiran isn't here today. He's the previous chair of the Thames Valley Drainage Committee, and he led this. He's also a landowner that is partaking in the trials. I'm not going to call them trials anymore because we've received such as monitoring and the reports and investigations that we've done to date have highlighted the fact that, it's achieved the benefits that we've been looking out for. So just for those members that don't know, this has been, I guess, on the books for quite some time. I'm going to guess the best part of 20 years. It goes over quite a number of catchment officers and their land drainage managers. It started off very small around Taranui, and when some of the landowners were quite happy to trial the use of native plantation as opposed to our traditional way of maintaining drains, which is normally mechanical dig every 8 to 10 years, or through weed spraying, which is done about twice a year. So the benefits, what we're looking for here is with using the native vegetation, and the shot you see on screen is where one part of the drain on the left bank, if you're looking to your left side, was planted. This is probably looks like an east-west drain, so you've probably got the plants, the carrots planted on the northern side, which allows some shade. So from a biota aquatic life point of view, it keeps the water cooler and also provides habitat, but it also provides a drape over the bank, so you're not having to have sedimentation that goes into the waterway. So it stabilises the bank, and it also means you don't have to mechanically dig as frequently as you would because you're not having the sediment get into the waterway. And it also provides less need to spray. So, and the other thing about the native species is that it's more tolerant. And look, I'm not espousing, I'm an ecologist here, I'm just reading off, because there is a report which we're happy to make available. Less need to spray, so that which means it's going to ultimately save costs, but also have environmental improvement without compromising level of service, because even if the banks are planted on both sides, you can still get the bigger bucket down in the middle. There may be some damage to the plants, but the plants are tolerant to drought, they're tolerant to damage, and they're tolerant to trampling, I think is what we read. So the trial reports have been very, very positive, and we've spoken to the chair of the committee this morning, and we've also had a lot of intelligence coming in from landowners. There's an opportunity here to roll out a program that's, that's, I guess, it's codified through the land drainage network, and also potentially leveraging off others from the industries around the catchment as we roll it out. So, yeah.
Erosion.
Yes, and so we would try and align in just another. So what Robbie was just saying, where we have some damage caused by the recent flooding, we've probably got some raw sites that would be ideal for starting this, and also. When we come up to a manifold digging program, there's an opportunity there to potentially, have the dig, but then start the planting program shortly afterwards. So it gives every chance for that vegetation to strike. And the other thing that I think these plants can do is that they can multiply. So they spread like a carpet, but you can break them off in clumps like a rhubarb. You can go plant. So you don't always have to have, if you need like thousands of plants, they actually do multiply as well. So there's a lot of benefits in perspective. May not be done in all drainage areas, and we do have hundreds of kilometres of drains, but small steps and an overall expansion over time, subject to budget and I guess support. It's certainly the signs are looking good. And I'll leave it there, Mr. Chairman, unless there's anything further I can elaborate on.
No, I think this is something that this committee should seriously consider supporting. With farm plans coming, you could actually target the catchment and not the farm, doing the system. So I think there's really integrated a lot of good investment that could actually have good outcomes, that you don't need to do those plantings on your individual farm. You could actually just target the catchment instead. So I'd hopefully the committee would endorse this to go forward, and hopefully we could secure some extra funding in the future in the LTP and from other business cases of Fonterra and other businesses in our Thames Valley catchment to help progress this forward. So I think this is. We all know what's coming in the farm plans. We've all heard about it for several years, and I think this is going to be a real value to our community to show that we are interested in biodiversity and restoration in our catchments. And it's going to give benefit to the catchment. It's not just there for a good look thing. It's actually lowering the cost of mechanical cleaning and spraying and all those other things. So I hope that at some stage we endorse this to go further. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are a couple of interesting things there I wouldn't mind just hearing a little bit more about. The first one was, it was mentioned that there was a report on the benefits of the planting and the like. I personally would be very interested in reading that report, and I think the other members would. So could I ask that it gets distributed when it's in a format that's suitable, and really hopefully that's now, but when it can. I recall from the last triennium that there was some discussion about pest species such as carp, and I wondered whether this planting has any effect on pest species, and whether that's been considered, and also whether it needs to be considered. I'd also be interested in that. And I heard the discussion around the balancing of the benefits, to the environment versus the drainage needs. I think it sounds like it's got a lot of potential, and I'm really pleased to get making progress on that. So yeah, I guess the main thing though is that if we could have the report, that would be lovely. The other thing I'd like to speak to, sorry, unless any of staff have a response or anything on that.
Yeah, through the chair, I think we could also bring back a summary presentation on the planting we've done to date, I think, just to give people more of an idea of where it is and where it's not. And I guess the aim and the vision is to, if you can do it on a catchment basis, then you can start looking at targeting your key areas first and going through it. And then obviously if the regional council by a targeted rate can make some money available, and we have put some money in the long-term plan for it, and then potentially increase that, then that becomes something very powerful that we can use to ramp other money on. So if we put $1 in, the aim would be to turn that to $3 or $4 effective on the ground. And you can do that by, going to, Robbie was saying, targeting some of the industries in the area that you interact with, and then some nurseries and also some maybe volunteer labour around that can get into that. So I think it's an exciting space. It meets a lot of, ticks a lot of the environmental and on-farm benefits that you get from it. But yeah, we can certainly come back with a report as well.
Thank you. And the other issue I wanted to understand a little more about is urbanisation. I'd like to understand what the timeframes are like. So it's been mentioned there's a policy to be developed. I think it would be good. I'd like for the subcommittee to see the policy, just so we can understand how it, it might impact our work. But I think the bigger picture is really around the timeframes. I'm not certain of what the timeframes for the developments are. When is this happening? Is it happening now? And how the timeframe for the development of the policy fits with that. So I'd be interested in understanding, are we going to be too late, basically?
Yeah, so through the chair. So there is development around the various urban areas right across the Waikato region happening at the time. And depending on the size or scale of that development, the Regional Council gets an opportunity to partake in a consent process. Generally, if it's under 1 hectare, you potentially don't, but we're setting up a network where we can still interact. Because one of the key things is that we need to understand whether they are in our drainage network, and then be able to signal to a developer coming in that yes, we have a requirement there for you to put in easements. We're required to meet this, and then that becomes part of the consent process. So when that's happening, we can capture it. So that's one issue, is to get a developer to understand what our requirements are for our land drainage service delivery, and protect that and enshrine that, so when the land's sold, people buy it understanding that that's the requirement. The next thing is to try and transfer some of the land where that's already happened, and then talk with the councils about where the future growth is and try and transfer some of the land. So that policy, I guess we would say, is probably, we had that and self-administration locked together, but it just became a bit too big and wieldy. So we decoupled those, so we are sitting there with a draft sort of policy on that urbanisation that, I guess could be shared. We are socialising that with the councils in terms of that, and there's varying degrees of acceptance of that issue, so there is some work to do there. The actual process, I think, for transferring and changing the responsibility for the drainage area can be quite long-winded, I think, under both Government Act, but we need to start somewhere. And then if we get a policy around it, then it's about implementing that policy over time. So potentially, if you had a group that you wanted to have a look at it from this forum, it could be useful in terms of a working group around that.
Yeah, thanks through you, Mr. Chair. Just want to endorse what Ruben said, just to reiterate that we are working really closely with the district councils. District councils are quite important in this process because they zone the land, they issue land use consents. So we have to, so part of it is to look at, yes, we've got current issues, but also going to be proactive to avoid it happening in the future. So we want to get in the gate early and say, hey guys, here's our land drainage maps. When you rezone the land, come and talk to us. And so it's more of a Waikato sort of issue at the moment around Kowhai and around Te Rapa. But we do have, and we've been speaking with Mata Piako around, Meta and Te Araha as well, and in part Lawrenceville. So we're working on those, but we want to have a really constructive relationship with the district council in this space and others and landowners, just so we can pre-identify. But like Ruben said, we've got existing issues that are being so hope that helps, Peter.
And Peter, it's not you. About 6 years ago, we signed one here in Te Araha back to Mata Piako. So it does happen. It's not a new development. It's happened in the past. So.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to go back to one of the other issues that Peter raised, and it is around that biosecurity. I know it came out in the Fed Farmers meeting with us just around that riparian planting, and that we're not creating more of a problem, rat corridors, stuff like that, planting things that have more potential for causing issues. So yeah, just highlight that, and it has come to us in council. Thank you.
That concludes our report, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so that's the report of the working program of the flood protection, river management of the Hauraki zone and the Thames Valley drainage Hauraki scheme committee of the 7th of December 2023 be received. Do I have a mover, please? Peter. Sir Jane. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Do you agree?
Cool, thanks, Mr. Chairman. So the final paper for today is it's a brief one. It's really bringing the purpose of the paper is to bring to your attention the long-term planning process that council is currently undertaking, and it's a really important one for this committee to not only be aware of but also to be involved in as well. We do this every 3 years. So every 3 years we develop a 10-year plan, and it's really looking at strategically what's council doing and what resources do we need to undertake that work. So and many around this table will be familiar with the long-term planning process. I know our district council colleagues will also be working through that. You've probably heard in the news that there are a number of councils around the country that are really facing some challenges with long-term plans this time around. We heard some pretty good numbers coming out as sort of provisional indications for the community. There are, I guess, 3 different areas that the subcommittee will have interest in. The first one is our infrastructure strategy, and this actually goes beyond the long-term plan. This is about our 50-year view of our flood protection and land drainage infrastructure. It's focused on identifying the issues that our infrastructure is facing, and many of you will be aware of some of the pressures that our schemes are under.
and identifies the options for council to respond to those issues and identifies the preferred options going forward. To assist members, you've all got a copy in front of you, the current infrastructure strategy. And so that's a bit of bedtime reading for you. A really important one which you get your heads around. Certainly a number of the issues that are identified in that version, which was done 3 years ago, are still current, but they've certainly moved on as well. And I think it's fair to say that urgency in terms of responding to those issues is probably lifted, particularly around some of the challenges we're seeing around scheme affordability. We're seeing some of our asset performance being impacted by issues such as peak settlement. And so we are really needing to, I guess, respond as a council and a community to these, because ultimately we're here as an agent of yourselves to maintain these schemes, and we need to really take a close look at what we're doing. So that's there for your background. Connected to that is the Regional Asset Management Plan. So that's a much bigger document, I think, that's also in front of you. You will see that that does dive into a lot more detail around our schemes. So it talks about levels of service, it talks about how we manage our schemes, it talks about numbers. And so that's an important one if you do want to understand a bit more detail around our assets, both on Hauraki Plains and also Lower Waikato. One point to make, I guess, with the 50-year infrastructure strategy is our goal at the moment is to really lift it up to be a proper strategy. It is quite a big document at the moment, and our current draft is sitting at about 60 to 70 pages, which is still way too detailed for a strategy. So we're doing a lot of work at the moment to really lift that up, because what it is needing to do is effectively say, where do we want to be in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and then look at what tactics we need to undertake as council to get there in 10, 20, 30, 40 years' time. The other area that will be of interest is around your budgets. So this is the process that we go through to prepare our budgets for council. And basically the process is that we take a look at all of our work programs, all of our schemes, all of our subdivisions. We look at the resources that are required to run those. And that involves looking back over the last 3 years, over the last 6 years, looking at how much cash, so how much contracted services are required, how much labour is required as well. All of that goes into a system to eventually spit out a budget. And also a rating requirement on that. Relatively straightforward for land drainage. It's all 100% target rate funded. A little bit more complex when it comes to flood protection because it is spread across direct beneficiaries, border zone rates, and also tune rates. So that process is underway at the moment. And what we'd really like to do is as soon as we're able to give you a bit of an indication of where things are looking at. The time frame that we're working to at the moment is that council will receive a proposed budget in late January, the new year. And then I think there's a 5-day workshop or 5-day meeting to run through all of the detail before ultimately proposing the budget, which will then go for community consultation in March, April. So in this regard, the role of this committee is really important in terms of looking at where those budgets are lying. And what your sense is around where they've got to, and to make recommendations to council. It is a real challenge. I mean, to give you a few highlights of what we're seeing, I mean, there are a lot of fixed costs which are impacting our scheme costs. Labour is obviously a lot more expensive than what it was 3 years ago, and there's continued pressure there. For our schemes that have debt, interest is big. For the last few years, it's been the 1 to 2% kind of mark. Whereas I think we're looking at more like 5 or 6% now. We have also just completed an asset revaluation, which we're required to do every 3 years. That effectively drives the depreciation charge on our schemes. That has also seen quite a lift as well. And that's driven by effectively what the replacement value of those assets are. A big area has been in the earthworks space. So in terms of the value to replace our stop banks, the earthworks unit rates have gone up. We have done a lot of testing on that because we got some pretty scary numbers initially. So we've done a lot of ground truthing, I suppose, in terms of the rates we're actually seeing. But yeah, it is still fairly decent lift coming through. But look, it's what all councils and agencies are seeing as well. Waikato are in the same boat. They are seeing quite a lift in their earthworks rates. And the other one is just any business cases in relation to the schemes. And so these are areas, opportunities for doing things differently, doing more work as well. So an opportunity for you to cast your eye over those and provide some of your recommendations through the council on how they sit. Yeah, so as I said, timeframes that we're working to is covered in paragraph 6, which is page 124, 125. And we'll work hard to give you, I guess, some insights as soon as we're able in terms of where that's sitting, to enable some good engagement to ultimately land a long-term plan for which is July next year onwards. The long-term plan doesn't lock things in for 10 years, so there's always, I guess, a go back every year, an annual planning process. Those of you who have been around a while may have recalled that the annual planning process used to be quite substantial. We do tend to try and lock it into the long-term plan now, and try to minimise the amount of go back, I suppose. So really putting a lot more pressure on doing a good job as part of a long-term planning process. But there still is the opportunity to revise things annually, especially with our schemes. You know, things do change. We have floods, we have different operational conditions impacting our work. So there will be that go back. So I'll just highlight paragraph 8 in the report, that there is some background reading there that's really important to get your head around, and it'll help set the discussion going forward. But Mr. Chair, I'm happy to leave it there. It's just a bit of a signpost for you all over the coming months. And thank you for questions.
Thank you, Greg. Questions?
It's probably related to the question too, but interested in when the next meeting for this committee is anticipated. Expect to talk with some workshops that sort of relates it to into this, if we're going to have any material or effective feedback. Someone just share with us what the thinking is.
Yeah, so the thinking is definitely once we have some material available, that it would be a good opportunity for this committee sees fit to come together informally to have a look at what's there, to run through it and provide, I guess, some thoughts, an opportunity for discussion before council considers that. So that'll be in late January. So I still need to figure out what dates will work for that. And it depends when we can get information available as well. We do have an opportunity though in the more formal part of the process to also involve ourselves in that discussion. As I said, at the moment, the planning is for council to adopt that proposal in late January, but it'll then be worked through for public consultation in March, April.
So I was just seeing here, sorry, we've got a placeholder for a meeting on the 15th of March, this committee.
Yes, that's the formal committee meeting, but we'll have a look at those dates and to see if we need to make any adjustments to make it work, because you are right, Connor, we need to make sure that it works with when the information is available, but also giving you a chance to have a check through it before coming together.
Seems to be a sensible use of the knowledge around this table.
Absolutely.
We've been hoping that's at the end of January. That's the hope, what it needs to be. So, thank you, Colin.
Chair, are you comfortable with people joining online in future as well?
Well, that's the
people
whole
maybe
idea.
go on holidays or something like that. They can,
No, the whole idea is actually to be in a place that you can join online, that if farmers are busy, they can still be at home and be inclusive in the discussion. Sorry, I shouldn't say farmers, targeted ratepayers, sorry. And any other member can be here online without travelling. So there's another discussion before we close the meeting about that as well. But I'll leave that till then, where we have meetings. So, I'm happy with anyone being online as long as their value or their input will be valued, no matter if they're online or here in a meeting.
And through Mr. Chair, in advance of that, maybe an idea for members to familiarise themselves with Microsoft Teams.
Yeah.
That's what we use here.
Yeah.
And just to see if you've got the right access, got the right things on computers. Yeah. They'll make things easier.
It's as easy as going onto your phone. I know you're shaking your head, pushing Teams, and you can actually just sit on your phone and dial into a meeting. It is very simple. I quite often, when I'm late going to council, go click into Teams, and my first 15 minutes will be online as I'm driving in. Well, that's a simple.
Famous last week.
Yeah.
Regularly.
Try.
Yeah.
So I if you can't be here, I really would like you to join on Teams if you can. Thank you. Any other questions for Greg?
Just taking a step back here, Robbie. This on page 122, we've got the Piako Mid-Reach Ponding Zone Stock Bank upgrade, package 3B. Can someone tell me where package 3B is? Because I was under the impression that when they did my banks that they were just going to progress down through the ABC Flats block, down through the Waikaka Canal, and then along Mangawhera Road, all the way to Kaihiri Road. The question I have is the funding still there?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I can address that. Yes, the funding is still there. However, between the stop banks around yours, which were package 2B, we found some issues with the modelling. And so what we're doing, and it's mentioned that we're looking at the model, doing a light review on it so that we're making sure that we're actually building the banks to the correct height and not overbuilding them, creating other issues or misusing some of the funding that we have got. So we're just taking a conservative approach while being fairly comfortable with the height of the bank as they are, that there's not any areas that are at high risk. So once we've got the results of those models, we'll be looking at the whole stretch of everything and then proceeding on. But the money's just being carried over, pardon me, rather than.
Are we talking 6 months, 12 months?
The model has taken a while, I was hoping to have it a year ago, but I'm hoping to have those surveyed areas that I mentioned before confirmed in the next 3 months or so, and then there will be a re-scoping investigation piece to see what we need to do, and then it'll run into a design phase. So I hope to have a more informative update for you at the next meeting. But we're just trying to make sure that we're using the best possible information to get the work done.
Are we having any headway with DOC and being able to take on what I call the willow zone around that ponding zone under your control, as opposed to having to always ask DOC just, can we do this? Can we do that?
I will need to find out more information about that. And it's a shame we don't have anyone from DOC here either, but I will, that's the first I've heard about that story. So I'll find out some more information. It might be related to some other work we're doing. I'm just not linking them in my head.
No, it's just, I know from who puts weirs in and who doesn't put weirs in and how they're managed and how they're controlled, whether being on DOC land, whether it's DOC that manages them or whether we get a chance as a council to manage it.
So your man just left, that's probably the expert in that, Mr. Sara. But that's, there's quite a long history, as you're fully aware, I'm sure, around that, and that DOC have got approved heights that they manage those weirs to, and because it's on their land, it's their responsibility.
Judy, just from memory, after the 2017 floods, there was a lot of discussion around who had control of what. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure there was a memorandum of understanding put together with DOC and WRC about who was about those issues. And is that correct? I think I talked to Kitty about it. Just from memory, I'm sure.
Through Mr. Chairman.
To save all that ambiguity.
Yeah, through Mr. Chairman, my understanding, I think what you're referring to, Philip, is after the 18th flood, there was a lot of obviously misunderstanding or confusion around how the dome operated in respect to the scheme. The scheme, I guess, it does interact with the dome, and so we have entered into conversation with Doc previously with Ngāti Hako on a wetland management plan. And part of that was to look at, we've done some individual sort of investigations, I guess, for using our resource use department, just around some of those authorised, unauthorised structures in the dome. There's the ABC block, there's the, the scheme in general, and then the dome management itself. So the dome is actually under the administration of DOC. It is part of the treaty settlement process going forward. I haven't got a latest update on where that's at, but in the meantime, I think we have a better understanding of the roles and responsibilities between, and part of the PRCO scheme review and the model that Jody was talking about is that we are socialising those outcomes with landowners, with DOC, and with the wider interest group to make sure that we do get it right, because it's an expensive business if we don't get it right. Yeah. So it's fair to say, I guess, the long shot of that is we're still working on it, but we're in a much better space than we were.
I think it's a pity Kenny wasn't here to speak on that, because I think he's got much more scope on that. And I've actually had some discussions with him lately about the marginal areas and some discussion that he's had, but I don't want to speak for Kenny. I think next time he's in a meeting, bring that up and let Kenny speak on it, on his findings. I think that's, yeah, so, yeah. I think that's, but there is, Kenny has got an eye over that, John, and he has said something to me, but I don't think it's fair that I say he should be representing himself here in the committee to say those things.
Just that I need to try and keep it moving forward, because I think it's critical that we have control of that, what I call the willow zone, not the dome. Leave the dome stops, they can have it. But it's just, that willow zone is like your lungs of your system, which takes the water and releases the water.
Yeah.
And if people are in there and doing mismanagement, then I know what the results like. So just going forward, I just want to make sure that we're still heading in that direction, that we get control.
Yeah, and through you, Mr. Chair, part of why the model has taken an extra time is that we're making sure that we understand the hydraulics a little bit better in that area, so that if we do want to look at any of the land in that area, we're justifying either having control or certain agreements with it. So yeah, we certainly are moving towards that with a better understanding. So I can't say too much now, but I hope to have more information for you soon.
Yeah, just going back to history, we used to have stock that actually grazed it, and the stock allowed channels within the willow zone to allow the water entry and exit. But that's all a no-no now. So yeah, it's all different. So how it manages the water, whether it holds more water or struggles to take water. Yeah. So I think it's quite critical that we still have it, because it's also for the safety of Ngātia and all the rest of it further down the line. Yeah.
Yeah, it all comes into that conversation. It's the plug in the bath.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been an underutilised part of the flood protection scheme, because generational knowledge of that has struggled a bit of the function. So, but as I said, Kenny's the best one. He's on that stuff all the time. I think let Kenny speak to that next time this meeting. I think that's the best place to leave it, John, because we can just go round and round.
No, I just want to try and keep it moving forward, just keep putting it there, so we just keep looking at it.
Yeah,
thank you.
What I would suggest is rather discussion point to make sure that's included in the work program update, so the information can be tabled for you to have a consider about. Any other discussion?
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, you received the report and a mover and a seconder. Harry, seconder, Ross. Thank you. All in favour? Aye. Again. Harry, thank you. Yeah, I'll just thank you again all for coming. Adam will close the, we'll say the kitty care. close the meeting, but you're all welcome to stay where you're seated, and we'll have an open discussion after the meeting. That can go for half an hour or so, or however long you want, where we can bring up issues that you all want to talk about, but at least it's an open agenda and speak your mind, as long as you're respectful to everybody. Then that's what we want to try and get out of this, that there is that open discussion at the end of a meeting, that we can just get down to the things that's on your chest and you want to get said. So you're not coming here and not voicing your opinion on things that need to be said. So thank you.
Kia ora, Robbie, thank you. Pena hia, mai te uru, kapingawi. Kia wākea, kia mama, kia nākau, kia tenana, kia pene dano, kia te ara, takutu, tō rā, kia rongo, kia whakakara, ake te ranga, kia tena, tena huie, tai ki whau.
Thank you. Meeting closed.
Calling off.
Aye. My fault. Thank you.